Hello, students and educators. We are so excited to have you join us for Career Exposure Week. My name is Chelsea Hunt, and I am the Executive Director of Work-Based Learning and Industry Engagement at the State Department, and I will be your moderator for this session. We will hear from our guest speaker, Jimmy Fish, Executive Director at Oklahoma Building and Construction Trades Council. And then we will have a Q&A session that I will help field any questions to Jimmy. This session is being recorded and will be archived within the Oklahoma Career Exposure Week online module. Also, we will send out the links to the recorded sessions to everyone who registered for this session. Please join me in welcoming Jimmy Fish, Executive Director at Oklahoma Building and Construction Trades Council.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea. I guess I am unmuted as far as I can tell on my end. I appreciate the opportunity to present today. As Chelsea indicated, I am the Executive Director for the Oklahoma Building and Construction Trades Council, and you guys probably all want to know what in the world that is. And so I'm going to give you just a little brief outline of what our council is. We're actually a council that's made up of 13 different international construction unions. And these international construction unions have 22 individual local unions located throughout the state of Oklahoma. A number of them are in the Oklahoma City area and some in the Tulsa area. So we have a mixture of both sides of the state. Some actually represent the entire state in their particular craft. We actually have agreements with 22 construction unions that represent over 6,000 active construction workers who are currently working in Oklahoma. And we also, through their collective bargaining agreements, have been able to provide very good retirement benefits. So in addition to our active members, we also have over 10,000 retired members in Oklahoma that are represented by our organization. Obviously, these unions have to have employers to provide work for these members, and we have over 1,150 union construction contractors who employ all of these 6,000 workers. Now, I know you're mostly interested in how you would become eligible to join one of our apprenticeship training programs. So I'm going to get into that and tell you a little bit about our training programs that we have to offer to those students who would be interested in a career in construction. We have 17 individual apprenticeship training programs, and currently we have over 2,000 apprentices enrolled just in Oklahoma. In addition to these apprenticeship programs, we do have 3 additional programs that are non-registered. The majority of our programs are registered with the U.S. Department of Labor, and upon completion, you would receive a certification that shows that you have completed the training program. Now, what are the crafts that are involved in these programs? They go anywhere from boiler makers, bricklayers, elevator constructors, electricians, mechanical insulators, iron workers, operating engineers, plumbers, pipe fitters, sheet metal workers, and fire sprinkler fitters. So every facet of construction is represented throughout our apprenticeship training programs. Now, the programs do vary in length of time that it takes to graduate. Some of the programs are 3-year programs, some are 4, and some are even 5-year programs. But keep in mind that the entire time that you're going through these apprenticeship programs, you will work a full-time job out on a construction site, learning the trade from journeymen that you work with, as well as attending school on nights or weekends, some a combination of both. Throughout about 8 or 9 months out of the year, you'll be in either a virtual school. Right now, a lot of our schools are are holding their classes by virtual, and a number of them are still doing some limited hands-on training. You're probably interested in how much money you're going to make. Actually, the average starting wage for our Oklahoma Building Construction Trades Council apprentices is a little over $17 per hour on the check. And that's a starting wage. And also, in addition to this hourly rate, the collective bargaining agreements provide the contractor contribute monies to your pension, your medical insurance for you as well as your family. So these are actually on top of your base wage that I indicated is a little over $17 an hour. And the average fringe benefit package, in addition to this $17, is $14.50 per hour. So when you add the two together, your total wage package for starting apprentice is $31.70 per hour. So that's not a bad starting wage for someone who just graduated high school with no experience. You don't have to have, you do have to have a high school diploma or a GED. Obviously, you go through a series of interviews, and based on what, if you do have to have some experience in, if you can actually have a leg up on some of the others. So it's good when you're in high school to take some of these trade schools that these training programs that you might have available to you in high school. That would include, we're heavy in math. I know one of the programs, the electricians, does require at least the basic algebra. So if you're interested in some of the crafts, algebra is always a good class to try to take while you're in high school. So the programs that we have statewide, they actually utilize over 70 instructors. Now, most of the instructors are journeymen within the trade, and these journeymen will be, actually some of them you will even be working with out on the job site during the daytime, and then they come in the evenings and do the training. Last year, our programs spent over $6 million for training. Now, this was included the apprenticeship training as well as the journeyman upgrade training. I know for some of the crafts, especially licensed trades like the plumbers, pipe fitters, sheet metal workers, electricians, they're all licensed by the state of Oklahoma. And so it's required that they do continuing education. And our training programs provide this training to the individual journeyman at no cost. And so it's very important for you to remember that if you get into the apprenticeship training programs, there's no cost to you as an individual. Everything is paid for. There are some sometimes some cost, basic cost for some books, but most of those are provided for you at no cost. There are a few programs that have some costs involved, but we're currently in a program with the Oklahoma Department of Commerce and some of the workforce investment boards to get our apprentices reimbursed for these costs. So we are here to help you and to make sure that you're not out of pocket. We want you to make sure that you can concentrate on making a living for yourself and for your family if you're married and have kids. Obviously, our programs will provide you with medical insurance that covers your family. But we mainly want to make sure that you get the best training that you can, and the cost is very minimal. One of the things that I always promote is the fact that I know a lot of you are planning to go to college, and there's nothing wrong with that. But college isn't for everyone. And I always like to point out that when you go to 4 years of college and you get you finally graduate, you end up with a lot of times with a pretty big debt that you have to start paying on student loans. Well, you can go through 3 to 5 years of apprenticeship training. And when you complete the programs, each year that you're going, you get an increase in your wages. So if you start out at $17 an hour as a first year apprentice, and like I said, that's kind of the average. We have actually, I'll give you the range. We range anywhere from about $15 base wage starting to about $24 an hour starting. As an elevator constructor, you start out making $24 an hour plus a fringe package of $36 and a total of almost $80 an hour. And that's a starting, that's not a starting wage. That's actually the journeyman rate, which I'm going to get into here shortly. But we want to make sure that you understand that you don't have a big debt when you end up completing these programs. So each year you get about a 10% increase. If you start out at 17, then the next year you're going to get $1.70 an hour raise. And each year after that, you'd get about a 10%. So our rates usually run about 50% of the journeyman rate starting out. And then the second year is at 60%. Third year is 70%. And then the fourth year is around 80%. And then after 4 years, in most of the programs, you would graduate. Our average journey rate right now is about $30 per hour with a $14.50 fringe package, which totals about almost $44 an hour. And that's our average. And as I stated earlier, the journeyman, as an example, the journeyman rate of pay for a elevator constructor is right at $80 an hour. And a lot of this will be on new construction, but they also, elevator constructors do a lot of keep the maintenance of elevators inside the buildings operable. Anytime there's you'll go into some of the large office buildings in downtown Tulsa or downtown Oklahoma City, and you'll probably see somebody with Otis Elevator or some of these other elevator companies that are basically stationed in those buildings to make sure that the elevators continue to run. And all of these guys are graduates from our apprenticeship training programs, and they make a very good living. Obviously, we have plumbers and pipe fitters that do work over the on new construction as well as some residential work. So it's an opportunity that you have that will provide you an excellent career with good benefits and really, I like to say no debt at the conclusion and once you graduate from your program. So the one thing that I do as a executive director for the council is I'm very active in recruiting for each of the construction trades. Now, you may want to know how you would find out about these. We have a website, and I have to apologize. We're having to make some updates, and Monday we should be back online with our website. I will put the website in the chat at the end of my presentation, but I wanted to give it to you if you wanted to write it down. It's just simply okbctc.org. And that's the address for our website. And you're able to access information on all of these programs. We also have a 50-page booklet that I'd be happy to provide to Chelsea, and she can get that to each of the participating counselors or instructors who's running the video conference for your individual schools. But this booklet is very helpful. It's actually available on our website, but I would like for you to have it this week. So I'll make sure that I send that to Chelsea, and then she can provide that to you. It's about a 50-page booklet. It's a PDF, and it explains the requirements for each of our programs, which are very minimal. Most of them, it just requires a GED or a high school diploma. Some of them do require a driver's license. Operating engineers obviously have to be able to drive vehicles. The Teamsters obviously have to be able to, a lot of times they'll need a CDL at some point. It's not necessary to get into the apprenticeship program, but they will give you training so that you can get your commercial driver's license. But the operating engineers, they generally drive big rigs hauling parts for cranes, because they do a lot of crane construction around the state of Oklahoma. So if you're interested, obviously this little booklet will give you a multitude of information regarding our programs. And then we also have we've just started the utilization of a new app that, and I guess I could actually put that on. It's pretty simple. It's all you have to do is text the name of our website, OKBCTC, to a 800 number or 888 number, and I'll also provide that in the chat that can be shared. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have, and hopefully I can answer them. If not, we'll get you answers on them, and we would love to have all of you download the booklet once I send that to Chelsea. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those.
Jimmy, thank you for sharing about your program. Yes, we do have some questions and a lot of interest for that booklet. So thank you for being willing to share it with me, and I will make sure the participants have access to it. And Jimmy, someone has put the website in the chat, but feel free to add those resources you said in the chat. But the first question for you is, what is a union?
Okay, a union is a group of individuals in a specific craft that have gotten together and asked that that they have representation with their employers. The union actually represents I'm going to use as an example the pipe fitters. All of the pipe fitters that wanted to get together and form a union of all of the individual workers, so that they could have a representative to represent them in negotiating their wages, their working conditions, their benefits, negotiate how they take their lunch time, how they take their break times, what kind of training they have to be a employee of the individual employers. So it basically represents them in their working conditions, negotiates their rates of pay for both the journeyman as well as the apprentices. So I hope that gives you kind of a brief description of what a labor union is.
No, that was fantastic. Another question for you, Jimmy, is how can students in school districts locate apprenticeship opportunities that you have shared today, or just in general?
We obviously try to make it out. We haven't been able to since the pandemic hit. We try to make it out to many of the career fairs that are held by the career techs, as well as the high schools. We've started trying to work through a number of the FFA programs as well throughout our rural schools. We find that a lot of the FFA participants from high schools, middle schools and high schools are very interested in working with their hands, working outdoors. So we do a lot of recruitment through the FFA programs. We try to participate in their annual event that they have, their annual convention that they host here in Oklahoma City. Obviously, they didn't have it last year, and I don't know if they're going to have it this year or not, but we try to participate in that. Our programs are very active out there trying to get the message out. We find that we're probably the best well-kept secret in the fact that we do provide excellent wages and benefits for individuals starting out looking for a new career. So obviously through our website would be one way. This booklet will have the individual websites for all of the different programs and when they take applications and where they take applications. So this booklet is very beneficial to you as a counselor to provide these students that might have interest in our programs the opportunity to familiarize themselves with where they are located. Now, I wish we had programs in the rural areas, but most of all of our programs are either in the Oklahoma City or Tulsa areas, with the exception of the operating engineers, the ones that train for operating cranes and bulldozers, earth movers, things of that sort. Their school is actually located just south of Stroud, in between Oklahoma City and Tulsa. So if you're ever on Highway, I believe that's 99, just south of Stroud, you will see their training center there. They have a lot of heavy equipment in their yard, and they have about 20 acres there that they do training for crane operators, dozers, earth movers, things of that sort. So the booklet, the website are probably the two best options for learning about what's available in the construction apprenticeship trades.
Thank you for sharing that, Jimmy. So we have a couple more questions. One is, are all of the apprenticeships the same length of time, and are there any dues affiliated with the programs?
Okay, no, they're not all the same. Some are 3 year, some are 4 year, and some are 5. I would say the majority of them are 4-year programs. Obviously, I keep referring back to the booklet. The booklet will cover each individual program, and it will point out whether it's a 3-year, 4-year, or 5-year program. A number of the trades that are licensed, and that would be the plumbers, pipe fitters, electricians, sheet metal workers. Those tend to be 5-year programs. Obviously, that 5th year, after 4 years, they're able to apply to get their journeyman license. So a lot of these, even though they're in their 5th year, they're going to be learning some specific things about the trade that are going to be very valuable to them. A number of our employers that we have in all of the trades actually went through our apprenticeship training program. So we have some 3rd and 4th generation employers that have graduated from our training programs and then went into business for themselves. So there's really the only limit you have is the limit that you put on yourself. You can use this knowledge that you gain as going through our programs to actually start a company and be an employer in the craft that you have completed. So there are a lot of opportunities even outside of just being an employee for the rest of your life.
That's good to hear, Jimmy. Another question for you. What classes can a high school student take to prepare for these types of apprenticeships? Also, are there any part-time jobs or scholarships that would help prepare them as well?
Well, obviously, as I mentioned, math and science are probably two of the best classes. Obviously, it's not absolutely necessary, but algebra is a good algebra and geometry are good classes to take, because a lot of the crafts you do a lot of layouts. As far as on the sheet metal side, I know the mechanical insulators and sheet metal workers do a lot of layout on sheet metal. Plumbers and pipe fitters do a lot of use a lot of math in their pipe fitting and things of that sort. So obviously those are two. Drafting is a good class to take if drafting is offered in your school. A lot of times if you're going to some of the career techs do offer some basic training in some of the crafts throughout the state. So those are always good. We do a lot of recruitment from the career techs, from their HVAC, the heating, air conditioning, ventilation programs that they offer at Francis Tuttle and some of those in the Oklahoma City and Tulsa area. So those are some of the things that you can look at taking. Those obviously help you when you go through your interview process, because if they're interviewing 25 applicants and you have some of the, say even through the summer, you worked for maybe your uncle who builds houses, your exposure to that construction site, even working for your uncle, will help you, because you've got some knowledge of, what it's like to work on a construction site, even though it was an industrial or commercial site. So it's anything that you can do during the summer. It's real hard for our employers to hire anyone on a part-time basis in the summer because of the age limitation. Our insurance carriers almost require that an individual be 18 years of age to work on a commercial or industrial construction site. They're not quite as strict on residential type construction. Obviously, if you live on a farm and your dad or your granddad does a lot of barn construction, anything that has to do with construction on a farm, obviously those are things that you would want to put and make the interviewers aware of when you go through your interview process. So those are just some of the little things that can help you if you want to when you go through your interview.
Thank you for sharing that, Jimmy. And I'm going to ask these final two questions. One is, if students are going to college on a scholarship program, or they just have that interest as being in an electrician field, what kind of college degree would they have to pursue?
Well, obviously, as a if you went to college with and received an electrical engineering degree, you probably wouldn't necessarily want to go into one of our apprenticeship programs. We do have college graduates that actually end up coming into our programs, and that's one way that I got into the program. I was actually in college. I'd just graduated from junior college and was getting ready to start my third year of college, and I had a bunch of friends that out of high school went to work as electricians, went to work in some of the mechanical fields, and they were already making more money than I was going to be able to make with a college degree. So I was like, well, I think I'm going to check on this. So I ended up, I won't say I dropped out of college. I saw the opportunity, and I really enjoyed working outdoors. So I grew up on a farm and had always worked outdoors all my life. So that I had a complete career change in the path that I was taking. And I'm very happy that I did. I've been able to provide for my family, been able to provide health and wellness benefits for each of my family members, and it's worked out real well. But I don't know that obviously any type of college degree would be beneficial for someone that wanted to get into our programs. That kind of floats that applicant to the top, and that's how the selections are made. Whoever scores the highest out of those 20 applicants will be picked first. Now, keep in mind, even if you don't score that well, you can always come back for a second interview, or you're kept in what's called our pool of eligibles for 2 years. So even though you come in and made application and you weren't selected in the top, say, 5 that went to work immediately, they're going to continue to pull from that pool of eligibles for up to 2 years. So you're going to remain in that group. Now, you can come back and interview a second time, or maybe you got some additional experience. You can come back and interview, and that can move you up a little higher in that pool of eligibles. So we do maintain the pool of eligibles for 2 years in most of the programs. So.
Oh, wow. That's so good to know, Jimmy. Well, Jimmy, we're going to come to the conclusion of this session. But before we do, if you'll go ahead and add in that website link you were talking about to the chat, and then if you'll just remind them in the chat what a Teamster is. But Jimmy, I want to thank you so very much again for joining us today. I want to thank our high school students and our school districts for joining. I'd let you know that I added into the chat the link to the registration for tomorrow. We conclude Career Exposure Week, and we will be concluding it hearing from careers in aerospace and defense. So we hope that you'll join us again and hear that information. And any resources that Jimmy mentioned today, I will make sure that you get that along with the registration links. Again, Jimmy, thank you so very much, and I wish you all a wonderful afternoon.